Well, let's get more on the G7 plans for fresh sanctions to further target Russia's economy. Nitesh Shah is head of commodity research at WisdomTree. Good to see you, Nitesh. Well, let's start with oil and this proposed price cap on Russian oil to reduce money going to Russia and also curb inflation. Is it going to work?
Yeah, well, let's put into context about what has already been done so far. So the UK have already put sanctions on oil exports from Russia, and through the Repower EU program, the EU is seeking to reduce its reliance on Russian hydrocarbons. The unfortunate thing about that has been that while it reduces the volume of oil and natural gas coming into these other countries, it's pushed up the price. So Russia has been able to create as much revenue as it previously had, but just through making less volumes. Now, putting a price cap in would help address some of that issue and help put some economic pain on Russia. I think the difficult thing is actually administering such a program.
And let's talk about gold. You know, why haven't gold imports been targeted before now in earlier sanctions?
Yeah, while governments haven't put gold in as part of their sanctions, the large sort of gatekeepers to the international bullion markets, like the London Bullion Metals Association or the COMEX, the CME who operate the futures markets in New York, they've actually already taken off Russian refiners off their good delivery lists. So most of that gold hasn't really been making it out into the sort of investor community since March when they were taking off those good deliveries. So a lot of gold isn't coming out of the market anyway, and to tell the truth, a lot of the gold that being produced in Russia is now being bought by the Central Bank of Russia anyway, because it's trying to pad out its FX and near FX reserves from currencies, alternative currencies to the dollar or the euro or yen, for example. So I guess that need hasn't really shown itself, but as a mark of solidarity, I guess is now being put into the list of sanctions in a more formal basis.
Now, we know that the G7 leaders are all talking about the detail of the next sanctions package, but there are some other invited guests there as well. So how important are they? How important, for example, is India in all of this?
I think these countries outside of the G7 are absolutely crucial because the G7 doesn't operate in isolation. If it does put in sanctions against Russia, just from those 7 nations, there are hundreds of other nations around the world that could potentially buy commodities. So getting the buy-in from potential clients of Russia is very important, especially if you're trying to put these price caps into place. We've already seen the impact of just putting a sanction in. It just means that the exports get diverted to countries. If you want to impose a price cap on an extraterritorial basis, you need to be able to communicate with those countries that are going to be affected. And obviously, administering a price cap is very difficult. The ways in which it could possibly be done is maybe the insurance companies who are trying to insure shipments, could be sort of barred from taking those shipments to countries who are not adhering to the price caps imposed by the G7 countries. But if you've already got a ban in place for those insurance companies, you have to almost lift them before putting new sanctions in place. And that will start to affect all these third-party countries, and India is probably a large player that needs to have buy-in from the get-go.
Nitesh Shah at WisdomTree, thank you very much.